What is a fulfilling relationship? A fulfilling relationship makes you feel free. You can spend all day with this person, and you will butt heads, and there will be friction, and there will be some fights as you wrestle with each other's egos and belief systems. But it's all led by creative choice. And that's what makes it so freeing, is because you hold space for each other's creative process. Reinventing yourself. Transformation is a creative process. Either you are exiting a relationship, you're spending time by yourself, getting to know yourself. Either you are leaving one job and going into a completely different career, or you're leaving one geographic location and traveling to one that's 500 miles away. That's a creative process, and we hold space for each other. A man is a wild man. He needs to be wild. He needs to wrestle with himself and his men, because manhood is about wrestling, and that wrestling is a man's creative process. A woman, our creative process is connecting with nature, poetry, all things that are medicine for the soul, while the wild man wrestles with life to have experience, adventure, right? To liberate one's physical form, to experience the might of himself, right? While the feminine energy is going inward to discover the soul, the core of the universe, in this meditative state of receptivity, fertility. So these are the constant energy exchanges happening between man and woman, masculine and feminine, the dance, the ecstatic dance. And we feel free because we are allowing the creative process to happen. And there's a respect, because when you're friends with someone, you respect them. And friendship is initiation. Okay? In our fast society, we are jumping in and out, and we're quite confused about our relationships. We're somewhat committed, somewhat not. We don't trust ourselves. We're uncertain, we're unsure. We're not listening to our intuition, right? Because we're clouded by judgment and belief systems from outside influences. Either that's childhood, parents, friend groups, your society, the sort of prevailing ideology, culture that you take part in. So our way of freedom in relationship is creating space through friendship, right? And friendship is where we really get to experience immense transformation. Because in friendship, there's a sense of independence, right? And interdependence, right? When you think of a friend, you're thinking, I am independent. I have my own personal experience, but I'm also interdependent, meaning I'm choosing to be reliable. I'm choosing to be dependable because I know that's going to build trustworthiness. And without trustworthiness, friendship cannot truly grow. It's just like flowers, right? If the flowers cannot count on the rain and the sun, a flower is not going to grow. It is going to die, right? So it's very much when you're having a friend, you're basically planting a seed. And we all know as a great farmer that you very much are reliant on rain and the sun to show up, right? And like a friend, the rain and the sun, it shows up in its own creative process. It doesn't show up in our control. We can't command. You are to be what I want you to be, right? Sun, you will be the brightest sun today. Or rain, you are going to rain today. When I want you to rain. How I want you to rain. For how long I want you to rain, right? So with friendship, there's a sense of receptivity and there's a generosity. There's a sort of flexibility. But there's also this dependability. And I think independence is very important to have within any relationship, either that be platonic, romantic, even with your parents and your animals, right? Even with your business partners, you're not going to have in and out partnerships with your business people because nothing's going to get done. And that's the same thing with relationships. We want growth. We want to get things done together, right? And just like business partnerships, right, we're together in this business arrangement because we want to grow, right? We have skills and talents that complement each other, that work well with each other, right? And when we look at relationships from that perspective of our skills and talents working well together, and again, friends is not necessarily about you are exactly the same. A lot of times in business, you want people who have a totally different perspective from you, right? Because then that's going to help you to see into something, an area of life that maybe you are not an expertise on, but it's going to help you to have knowledge on that. Because ideally, we want to be as dynamic as like an owl, right, with that 360-degree head turn, right? And some of us, we can get very tunnel vision, we can get very stubborn and resistant in our mindset, that sometimes we do need to shake up. And that's why we have these business partners and these friends that are different from us. We do not want every single friend person, every single business person to be exactly like us, because that will create stagnancy, right? We will start to become a flat Stanley, is what I call. Where you're starting to have a flat, static personality. And you're bored. You're bored by yourself. Because we're not here to be static, flat people. We're here to be very multidimensional. We're here to be spherical, right? Like the owl with the 360-degree head turn, right? We want to have a view of the sun and the moon. So when the owl's head is turned to the east, it's seeing the sun. When it's turned to the west, it sees the moon, right? And that's kind of what we want to connect with as people. We want to have knowledge on the moon and knowledge on the sun. That's why we have masculine and feminine energies on this planet. That's why we have diversity, is so that we can have multiple perspectives, so that we're not static and flat Stanleys and bored by ourselves. Creative process is quite dynamic. Creative process is unlocking a range of emotion, a range of intelligence and perception and perspective and belief system and mindset, right? That's challenged by the freedom you experience when you're with this person, right? So the number one thing we want is freedom, right? And freedom is something that has to be established within yourself first. You have to know your boundaries. You have to know discernment. You have to know how to speak up for yourself, especially as a woman. You have to have a voice, right? Codependency I see as the most unattractive thing, because it means that you don't feel worthy of your own time and presence, right? It means that you don't feel satisfied by your own presence, that you need to fill it up with this person all day long and needy, right? We want to feel needed, like a friend that's supporting your independence, because at the end of the day, the only person that's going to get things done when it comes to business, especially you are the owner, the CEO of your own business. Either you're a household mom, or you're a teacher, or you're just an artist. Everyone is an artist in some way, right? It doesn't have to be like you actually have a business, like a location. It can be just a little space in your house, right? At the end of the day, it's on you. You are an independent being. It's on you to complete the task and get things done. And codependency can be like an escape, where we're trying to, we're needing this person to try to do it for us. We want them to do it for us, right? We don't want to do the work. We need them to make us feel better about ourselves, right? And none of that makes you feel free, and none of that makes them feel free, because it's very, very heavy to always please somebody who's just very discontent with their own presence and their own spirit, right? So independence in a partnership or relationship creates freedom, because basically you're nourishing yourself. And when you connect with somebody, you want to be nourished, and you want them to be nourished. You don't want to connect with someone and they're seeming malnourished, and they're seeming very bored by themselves, and they're just very unhappy with themselves. No, we don't want that. And they don't want that from us. So sometimes this independence can seem like tough love, but it's quite shocking in such a electrifying way, because it gives us this transformation. And sometimes in order for us to transform as human beings, we have to light a fire in our asses. Because if it was up to us, we would just stay in our comfort, in a little comfy, cozy well, a frog in a well, just live out our lives, a frog in a well, right? Completely not really paying attention to the bigger evolution of things, right? Feeling nice and comfy and cozy. So a relationship that makes you feel free, freedom is very much a participation, right? We think of children are free, but children are free because they are deeply connected to their creative process. Until they start to cave into limitation and belief systems that tell them that they should not embrace their creative process. Actually, they should judge, they should shame, they should belittle, they should sabotage all of their creative process. If they're not doing this, they should feel less about themselves. If they're not at this level in their reading, writing, or math, then they are lesser, right? So all of these conditions are plopped on children, and that's why they become less free. And as adults, that's where we're less free, because we don't even embrace our creative process. We're constantly nitpicking, hard on ourselves, nitpicking other people. And then what happens is we have no freedom, because our creative process is our own, and our partner's creative process is his or her own, right? And it doesn't matter who's growing faster, or who's growing as steady, and who grows with velocity. It doesn't matter. Growth is unique, right? Just like plants, plants grow at different times, right? And they're not competing. They're not, oh, I am taller than you, so I'm the better plant. I grew before you, so I'm the better plant. No. There is no such thing as this judgment towards the creative process. So in the child's magnetic field, they're so magnetic to all kinds of ideas and imagination. And I believe our creative ideas that we cultivate in adulthood are actually seeded in childhood. Like Dr. Seuss, I believe all of Dr. Seuss's books, his prolific writing, was seeded in his childhood, in the child's mind. Same as J.K. Rowling with Harry Potter. I believe Harry Potter was seeded very early on, when she was probably 5 to 9 years old, right? Even a lot of these ecstatic poets or ecstatic songwriters, musicians, I believe a lot of these victorious ideas are seeded in childhood, because that's when we're open to the creative process. We're not seeding our plant, and then when it grows, we're ripping it up because it's not growing the way we want it to grow. Like, oh man, I'm just gonna rip it out of the ground. I'm frustrated, it's not growing the way I want it to grow, so I'm just gonna rip it out and throw it away and try it again. You know what I'm saying? So with our partner, it's like that. It's growing. It's like a flower. It's this sense of peace and steadiness. And that's why there's independence, because these flowers are all independent, but they are in companionship with the others. There is basically sex that happens between plants, and we know that, right? Between masculine and feminine energies. But every single plant is an independent being, but the root system of the plant is intertwined with the other flowers. So that's the interdependence, is they're constantly exchanging signals to each other through the root system, right? So really, when we think of we're with our partner, the root system has everything to do with sharing of nutrients with each other to help each other grow, like a tree system. Are constantly sending nutrients to each other, right? So if there's one tree that is very malnourished because they haven't got much light or they didn't get much water, right? The tree system that is all connected for miles and miles will send these nutrients to all these trees that are malnourished to support their growth, right? To the best of their ability, right? And that's why we have life on this planet. That's why we have life, because life is sharing with each other. It's giving to each other. If life was just hoarding everything, then we would not have life all across this planet. We would not have these millions, billions, trillions of trees, I like to say. If all the trees were like mine, me, mine, my self-centered me, right? So nature has found this harmony with all of its organisms, and has everything to do with sharing, right? And that's the circle of life, right? Everything dies and everything is born again, right? And shape-shifting and becoming different species, right? Through evolution. So with a relationship, the freedoms we really want is to share ourselves. In order to share ourselves and our nutrients, right? Like a tree, is we ourselves have to have nutrients. So a malnourished tree is not going to share nutrients because it needs it. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of us, we need nutrients, we need to feel nourished. And we need to get it from the earth. We need to provide it for ourselves. We need to be our own healers. Trees and plants are great at being their own healer. The other species of plants, they support the healing, but they're not the ones that do it for the plant. It is the actual species of plant that is malnourished that actually repairs itself, that heals itself, not the other plant. So that's the thing. We're supporting the relationship. They are a healer. I'm a healer of myself, right? And when you come together through intimacy, interlocking your root systems together, right, which is your ancestors, your lineage, right? Just like having a baby, you're basically interlocking your lineage, right? So wherever their ancestors have been for multiple generations, wherever your ancestors have been for multiple generations, combine their blood together in this sort of ceremony, right? And you begin to kind of connect your root systems. And then you're beginning to support each other's individual growth, making a choice to do that, not forced, making a choice, right? So the freedom you get is because every man is a wild man and every woman is a wild woman. It's just different. A wild woman is a woman who needs to be creative, right? And a man needs to support that, encouraging her to go to the poetry class, take the dance class, right? Go to your surfing lesson. I love your paintings. Will you paint more, right? Because that is what makes her feel like a wild woman when she's dancing. Wildly ecstatic dance, poetry, movement, meditation, community with sisters that are also ecstatic, right? And wild man is, wrestling with his experiences, developing courage and might, right? Through really going out into this world and, seeing what he's made of. That's why a lot of, men, there's this whole history of these sort of men, kind of wrestling with bears, and there's Bear Grylls, right? He's a wild man, where he's basically, he goes out into these places across this planet where he's just wrestling the wild. Like most of us would not survive. We would either be bitten by a poisonous spider, bitten by a snake. We'd probably have creepy crawlies that would probably, attack us, and we wouldn't survive. We'd be eaten by a crocodile and all that stuff. But he represents a wild man, Bear Grylls. He's wrestling with the wild to test his might, to see what he's made of. And that's the ego of man. I have to test to see what I'm made of, right? And women, we're not so much like that. We don't need to go into the wild with crocodiles and be wrestling with crocodiles to, see what we're made of. We experience we're made of when we're ecstatic dancing. We have like a performance, right, with our sisters, and we're performing this this dance, right, this traditional dance, right, that many of our ancestors have performed before us, and we feel this same joy that a man feels when he's wrestling the wild or something like that, right? We experience the same joy, right? So the man has joy can seem a little bit more of like an attack, right? On the external, I need to wrestle with something. I need to test my might. I need to strengthen my ego. I need to see what I'm made of, right? And then, there's this feminine that's inward, that's, I feel my creativity, my poetry, that makes me feel like really, really content with life. Like I know who I am. I feel, I feel I made it, you can say, right? The man, the woman's trying to make it in their own way, right? To find their true north, to find what works for them and what really brings them into their heart, right? And a man's heart is a little bit more robust. It's a little bit more like, like Bear Grylls. It's like a little bit vigorous. It's a little bit like pumping blood, passion, sexuality, physical, exercise, physical movement, right? That kind of edge, like my heart is like on the edge of life, right? And then a woman's heart, our heart is not as robust. Our heart is highly, highly expansive. We need to express how expansive our heart is, right? Through our words, through our poetry, through our dance, through our song, through our cooking, right? Through our making clothing, through teaching of our children, right? Sharing stories, writing stories with our children. That is what fulfills our sort of pounding drum of the heart. You always say the pounding drum is the woman's heart. And you always say the lion's heart is a man's, masculine, right? And this is not sort of gender targeting. Masculine can be in a woman, right? Who identifies with masculinity, right? There are men who identify with femininity, right? But the same principles apply, right? So, when we start to understand this kind of Shakti movement between man and woman, we start to understand the independence and the interdependence is actually what brings us the freedom. And when you really are connected with your quote-unquote soulmate or your beloved or your lover, you feel freedom, and they hold space for you to be you, your wild man self, your wild woman self. And they're not judging you. They're not, well, you need to be what I need you to be. All of that nitpicky stuff, all of that like pushing and pulling, give me what I want, and in this transactional, right? It's not, the process, there's a sense of patience for the process, and there's also, you're signing up for a person. When in a relationship, you're signing up for them. And we would hope, in a relationship, you really never, like a farmer, you never really reap initially the first season. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why a lot of people are very discontent with their past relationships, because they weren't even committed. They weren't even like in it to win it. You know what I'm saying? Like a farmer, you have to be in it to win it. You're not going to grow anything. That's why a lot of people, they feel like they didn't grow at all in these relationships of their past, or because they were in and out, they were very uncertain. You can't be like that in business, in your career, with your friends, with even farming. Like, if you really want to grow something, you have to be with it. If you really want to grow tomatoes, you can't just, I'm just going to put it in there, just hard as rock soil, and then just hope for the best. No, you want to support it. You sing to your tomato plants. You make sure to water it. If it hasn't rained in 5 days, well, you better get some water. You know what I'm saying? If it's no sun, you need to get it in a place that has sun. So, you know what I'm saying? In our relationship, sometimes we're so like, oh, I didn't get what I wanted, so let me just move on. Or I don't like this person, da da da. But you're signing up for a person. And that's why early on, you should, you should show this person who you are. Don't, a lot of times we're hiding and we don't even reveal until 6 months because we're such in this bubble love where we want them to like us, but then we're not even real. And then we don't even know what we're getting invested into. We don't even know like what we're actually getting ourselves into. Right? It's like we thought we were going to grow tomatoes, but then all of a sudden we realized, wait, I'm growing cucumbers. Right? And a farmer is, it's like there's this always this wonder, right? There's always this pizzazz, like, okay, I guess I'm eating cucumbers. I wanted tomatoes, but I guess cucumbers, right? So there's this sense of like easy going, like easy does it, right? And that's the creative process. Easy does it with yourself first and with this other person. But I think when we start to move into a relationship that's more fulfilling, instead of just like child's play or just unconsciously just kind of pushing and pulling and cat and mouse, things that we do with each other, where we start to really become sincere, which is also committed, and that doesn't necessarily mean marriage. It's just you want to see it through. Like if you're creating a garden, why would you not want to see it through? Like that's just like, what? You're creating something with someone. And that doesn't necessarily mean a baby, a marriage. It just, you are creating space with this person, right? So, right, you want to see it through, right? And many times, unrequited love, unreciprocated love has everything to do with not feeling worthy to really have what we really want. So in our creative process, we're not willing to wait. We're not willing to say no to what almost gets us requited love, almost gets us reciprocity. We're not willing to be patient with our creative process. We're not willing to go deeper inward to see, okay, well, I'm drawn to these relationships and they keep reflecting back to me unrequited love, unreciprocated love, in balance within giving and receiving. So my creative process, I need to go inward and see how I can change giving and receiving energy with the universe and just with my life, so that I can create more harmony with that, so that my outer world will start to reflect back to me relationships that are more giving and receiving. And your creative process is you. And I think in our society, we're just so not into the creative process. We want it now. And we get upset when we keep getting in these relationships and they're not what we want, and we're piggybacking, and then we're rebounding, and then we're jumping here, there, and then we're just feeling quite confused, and then heavy and burdensome, and then we're feeling triggered, and then we're feeling like discouraged, right? Creative process is something of independence, something you have to go within yourself, and you gotta get real with the universe. And you gotta get real with your potential dates or whatnot, right? You have to show yourself. And if you don't know who you are, that's something that ongoing forever and ever and ever and ever, right? But that's something you have to define and redefine, and you'll do that many times. But it's something, it's not as though I am this, I am that in our sort of vocabulary, like a resume, like, yes, I have this much experience in this, and I have done this and this. No, it's not a list on a resume. Who you are is simply you accept yourself. You have talents, you have a way about you, you have a personality, you have a perspective, that's you. And you need to accept that and honor that and share that. Don't hide that away, right? And that's how we're going to be able to better navigate relationships early on, to really get what we want, which is we want everything we are, which is our personality, our perspective, our belief system, our childhood, right? Our mind, the way our routine, the way we live our life, right? Our past, our ideas of the future. We want to combine all of that with the other person's, so that we can start to expedite our own growth, so we can start to create a spark of evolution within ourselves, which is a spark of inspiration. Because that person, whatever their personality is, their belief system, their perspective, it may be in friction with you, but a spark of fire is from friction, right? Every Boy Scout knows that. When you're, bringing two sticks together really, really fast. You're creating friction. That creates a fire. Fire is inspiration. Inspiration gives way to ecstatic movement, transformation, healing, insight, light to the darkness. So you can navigate, find your way, compass. Right? So that's really what we're sharing with each other in our relationship. And it supports this freedom because, there's nothing, more freeing than you can actually reinvent yourself with this person. And they're not binding you. They're not tying you. They're not codependent on you. They're not sort of clenched to you, attached to you, right? They're with you, walking with you, wanting to grow with you, and they're growing in their way, right? And, these type of relationships we think are very rare on this planet because we get very, very confused because we're so outside ourselves. We're so focused on the Joneses and what is Tom, Dick, and Harry doing? What is Sally, Susie, Jane doing? We're so into what all these other people we don't even know are doing. And that's why we're confused, because we're thinking, well, if I'm not getting sex 10 times a week, like Dick over there, then something must be wrong with my relationship. A woman may think, if he's not doing these luxurious things for me, then something must be wrong with our relationship because Sally's partner's doing that for her. You know what I'm saying? So we second guess, we doubt, we're confused. A relationship is private, right? And that's why personally for me, I'm not into posting relationship all over the media, because it's not for people to analyze and to try to figure out what kind of relationship they have, right? It's sacred, right? Just like sacred ceremony is wisdom is not just here. You know what I'm saying? It's for you and this person, and I think that's what makes relationship even more intimate and even more mysterious. And the mystery of the relationship actually is what creates a lot of transformation, a lot of growth, right? So, our relationships all over the media, that's fine, right? Works with you. But there should always be this sacredness where you and this person, it's like you're creating something. And just like any creator, you're not just going to reveal all your secrets, right? You're not just going to let everybody have access to it, right? So that's why there's this relationship is you're creating something together, right? For your future. And in our world, it needs to be protected, right? So our freedom needs to be protected. We know this. That's why we have people, warriors on this planet who are protecting people's freedoms, because if we had it up to, these imbalanced individuals, control freaks, there would be no freedom, right? So your relationship, that freedom is protected. It is protected by your independence, your willingness to go in to yourself and release these triggers, these frustrations, these upset, these childhood wounds that have you lashing out. It's okay to be wild. It's okay to be, upset and sad and all these type of emotions. But self-destruction, that has no place in a relationship. Destruction in general, destroying. Energy does not have a place in a relationship. Relating is about ascending, growing, developing. Destruction, destroying, is the opposite. It's about de-evolution. Evolution is about relating to the earth. Creative process. De-evolution is about destroying each other, stripping each other of all sort of value and worth, to the point where you feel such low self-esteem where you don't even feel like you have the will to even get up in the morning. You know what I'm saying? So if there's relationships that's de-evolution or destroying and self-destruction, that person, as much as you love them and you want to fix them and heal them, that person, they need to figure it out on their own. They need independence. They don't need to be needy. They don't need to be clingy. They don't need to be codependent. It's almost like you have to let them build up the strength on their own. And if they're not willing to do that, there's nothing you can do. Just pray that, they'll find their way. Right? Because there's nothing about relationship with self-destruction, de-evolution. It's miserable. It's grief after grief, disappointment after disappointment, never-ending cycle of this karmic debt we're creating with a person that will never be paid. Only one can face the enemy within themselves. You cannot face the enemy of them within them on behalf of them. They have to face the enemy within themselves and not just wrestle with it for a day, a month, a year. They have to wrestle it till its completion, until that addiction, until that whatever destructive pattern, hate myself type of thing is completely brought into the dirt of Mother Earth and completely decomposed, completely withdrawed. And that withdrawal will be ugly as hell, because emotional bankruptcy, ego will have to reach a depth, and it will be not so pretty, and they will look like they're about to die. Right? But it's on them. They have to go through it. We cannot go through on behalf of somebody else. It's not our karma. It's not our responsibility. Right? We send healing, we send nutrients through this great web of oneness, but it's on them. And that's the freedom we have. The freedom of karma and these interlocking karmas and these type of taking on karmic debt for other people. It just makes us feel just crappy. Right? So relationship, people want to destroy themselves, go ahead, be single, do that. Right? And a lot of these people that do destroy themselves want relationships because they don't want to be alone doing it. Right? They want somebody to be with them in their own hell. Those people are not in a relationship. They're not in evolution. They're soil that is polluted. No flowers can grow in polluted soil. They got to clean it up. You don't need to be there with that. You're here to grow like a flower. Not just sit there and be a seed choked in pollution where you can't even grow. Right? Because you're poisoned by the pollution reeking in the soil. Right? So relationship is for evolution, is for those, if it's a small percentage on this planet, people who are deciding, you know what, I am in a state of self-love, I'm in a state of freedom, I'm not participating in these habits, behaviors that destroy me, destroy another person. You know what, I'm vibrating the cosmos. I'm working on my consciousness. Right? What it is to be wise and philosophical and connected to your feelings. Right? That's relationship. You want a deeper experience of your feelings. You want to actually feel like you can create something. Destroyers, they're not creating anything. There's no creative process for them. They just want to die. Right? Creative process is about life, giving life. And giving life has everything to do with supporting life. Has everything to do with taking care of life. It means take care of yourself. If you feel like crap, most likely when you see a person glow and you see them radiant, you're just going to be triggered, right? And you're going to be nasty, or you're just going to be jealous or envious or insecure by their own presence. You're going to be intimidated. You're going to be intimidated by their eyes and how penetrative they are. Because they are a being that's actually going inward to gather magic from the earth, from their soul, and they're actually wanting to embody the magic of their creativity. Right? They're not playing a game with it. They're not, child's play, let me just fool around with the idea. No, they're actually going in and doing it. And that's why people are intimidated by these people, because they're not just fooling around, we'll get to it one day. No, they're actually, you know what, time is precious. Let me go in and let me just do it. let me make this transformation. Let me embody my soul. Fuck these beliefs, these conditions, these limitations. I could die tomorrow. I might as well just channel my divine inspiration and start to fill up my presence with this beautiful, this garden that people are intimidated by. Because my garden has, a lot of species of plant that I've gathered through my voyage across this universe, that I took by myself to really to gather seeds from different geographic regions to kind of plant them all together. And you're looking at my garden like, whoa, this is so exotic. I'm jealous of how exotic it is, how ecstatic it is. Well, I went out into the world, into the universe, into my heart, into my mind, and I gathered seeds from all kinds of different epiphanies and stories and philosophies and religions and meditations, and I put them all in my garden. And I watered them, I took care of them. I wasn't destroying them, I wasn't judging them, I wasn't ripping them out of the ground because it's not looking like Tom, Dick, and Harry type of flower garden. I'm not comparing, I'm not competing, I'm not contrasting, I'm not looking outside of myself constantly, looking at Sally's relationship and Dick's relationship and trying to fit into that. No, I fit into what soothes my soul, right? And I did that time and time again until I became the best farmer I know of my own soul, my own garden, my own nourishment, my own food, right? And that's what we want for each other. And when you combine your gardens together, you don't want to be someone in your life where they don't even know how to grow their own garden. You want somebody that knows how to grow. Grow is like a farmer. You know how to grow things. You know how to cultivate. Relationship is not, we can teach and skills and share talents, but, it's something you have to participate in. A farmer is hard work, and, you can't do it for someone. You can't I'll do it for you, I'll start your own. No. Right? You can give them a skill, you can show them how it's done, but they have to do it. And that's what you want. You want a person who wants to do it, not, I'm bored, I'm lazy, maybe not. And that's why we as independent people, we have to embrace the fullness of our intensity, of our expression, our garden, how exotic our soul is in this grand universe, our creative process. What is we want to manifest our creativity, right? And is supporting a space for relating to each other's creativity. And that is mentally, emotionally, physically, sexually, sensually, because creativity is the seed of all seeds, the one of all one, right? Of all things. And when you're relating to that, you're relating directly to the core of them, the start of them, the end of them, who they really are on a soul level, the change in them, the transformation, the past, the present, the future of them, the emotional, the mental, right? And who doesn't want that experience? That's union. That's why we use so much yoga, because the creativity of yoga is working with the emotion, working with the body, working with the mind. The sexuality, the sensuality, and the spirit is all kind of dancing in this sort of whirlwind around the core of who we are, which is creative being. So when you're relating to somebody from that point of view, through your own independence, through your own sort of investment in the universe that you have taken on your own sort of personal self, and you join that with somebody who's also doing that, basically we talk about universe coming into the universe, universe pouring into the universe, and that's what our galaxy is doing. It's pouring the universe into the universe, right? Like an overflowing chalice of water, right? And that's what we really want to experience, because that is that freedom that has no complaints, that has no nagging and no nitpicking and no I right, you wrong. It has this total friction challenge for the fire, the ignition, the engine of the movement of the two people, to actually give birth to new understandings, new perspectives, new ways of living, by being honest with each other and challenging each other's current state, right? Maybe there needs to be a new energy. Maybe there needs to be new things, new movement, new death and rebirth, reinvention, redefinition, new routine, right? And that's what makes it ecstatic, and that's what makes it purposeful, meaningful, because you're moving with it. You're not resisting it. You're not like this anymore. You're not like this anymore. Things are going to move. Things have to change. Things are not changing in a relationship. That's going to cause a lot of that frustration, a lot of that stagnancy, a lot of that that sort of boredom, or that sort of, the spark is gone. Because things need to transform. People need to grow, right? People need to evolve, and people need to take it upon themselves to do that. But how we're able to really do that is we have to be inspired by each other. That means we decide, you know what, I'm going to follow my highest inspiration. Either that's reading books, either that's, writing songs, whatever it is. Because that's going to create this wave of inspiration in our union that's going to support this sort of back and forth of inspiration that will transform, and it will adapt, and it will take on different forms, different phases through chronology, and different type of careers will happen, different geographic locations. Then there will be children, and then maybe there'll be pets, maybe they'll be grandkids, and all these type of things change. But the core of you is that creative process. And when you return back to that, there's a sense of not being so hard on yourself, not being so hard on your significant other, and holding space for each other's freedom, knowing that the pain, the hurt is a part of the breakthrough, right? The pain and the hurt, and many times, is our way of actually healing these deep wounds that we have, right? And they need to heal their deep wounds that they have. But pain and hurt is not destruction. It's not, I'm going to destroy you, I'm going to destroy myself. It's not a personal hell. You know what I'm saying? It's not a hell with this person. You're not in hell with this person. Pain and hurt is triggers. It's things that they do that remind you of your childhood, or remind you of abandonment or neglect, or they're self-centered, they're egotistic, and you are upset by that because it triggers you, because you want them to be this and that, and they're not being that, and you're upset, and you know what I'm saying? And all of that is that hurt and the pain of them not being what we expect them, and that kind of upset we get, and frustration. They need to read our minds, they need to be always attentive to us, and they need to be like this, right? It really just promotes unconditional love, and it really just focuses our energy on being receptive to change. Like, if you were abandoned as a child, then the change for you is your partner is going to challenge that abandonment issue, so you can maybe change, maybe heal, move on from it, right? In a deep subconscious level. The only way too is that, there has to be a spark. That hurt and that pain is always that spark to our healing. It's that fire that we can use to destroy ourselves or to create. And when we use it, that hurt, pain, to create ourselves, that's when we really experience monumental change within our subconscious and within our relationship to these things of the past, and these negative things we experience, right? So, but we have to make the choice. The hurt and the pain can either destroy us, or it can build us up and make us stronger and create us, so that we can know what it is we really want, what it is that doesn't work in a relationship. We can communicate that. So if something they do and it really brings up this issue, we can explain that to them. And if they are on the same page as us, they're going to respect our creative process, and they're going to change, and they're going to evolve, because they're going to understand maybe the way that they're connecting to you is actually really harsh. And maybe it's not appropriate. Maybe it's maybe they are having a revelation about something in their childhood, a belief, a relationship type of hurt or wound that they've gathered that they're sort of reacting to. That's why they get frustrated and act out and upset and this, that, and the other, right? Taking it out on you and you taking it out of them and that kind of thing, right? So at the end of the day, when we focus on the creative process, like any artist would do, you know, there's this sense of freedom to go and discover and to express and to listen and to reinvent and to sort of bring value to the differences, the different the personality differences, and just bring value to the challenge of this person that they give you, the pain and the hurt that maybe you've experienced with them, and also the kind of strength that you've developed as a person because of these type of things that you had to face within yourself, so you could really get really real with what kind of creation you want to have with a person, right? Sometimes that creation you want to have with a person is no longer this person, because you're evolving, and that evolution of both of you it's a mutual agreement to move forward in different ways for further exploration, right? And that will be natural, right? And that will be something of unconditional love. Again, it will be something of freedom as well. And that's that emotional maturity we all yearn to have in relationships, but we don't understand you can't have that unless you actually have the independence within yourself. And that's why at the end of the day, either we get married at 21 and divorce at 35, like, you know, there's a point in our life where we have to be independent, we have to be single, and we have to be inward with ourselves. There comes a point where we're hungry and we need it, and we're completely dissatisfied unless we have it, because we have to learn that within ourselves to really feel satisfied within a relationship, to really feel whole as an individual within a relationship, to really know where you begin and where you end, and where they begin and where you end, so that when you do come together and you don't know where you begin and where they end and all that, you feel confident in what you're creating with them. You're not insecure and like, I don't know, and I'm needy and you're everything to me and I'm addicted to you and that kind of, if you leave me, I'm just gonna be so sad, right? There's this sense of, I'm confident what I'm creating with you, but I'm also confident in my non-attachment to you, my growth with you, and the freedom I have with you. And when you are in a complete moment with your lover, by the way, it's like you experience the whole relationship, the beginning, the middle, the end. If you have a complete moment with your lover in your relationship, you are completely satisfied for this life. And when you have a complete moment, a deep moment, a fully present moment where you're so receptive, your creative process with them reaches this ecstatic moment of opening, of divine inspiration, and that is the moment. You feel this total completion with this person, right? So that is the moment that brings everything together, past, present, future. And that's the moment that we experience this kind of big bang, right? This explosion of creative energy that brings all of these visions to life and all of these realms, realities, dimensions into our awareness, and we feel completely at ease with this relationship and its story and its ending and its rebirth and letting it go, right? Continuously, we're always letting go of each other. When we send our child to school, we're letting them go. When we pick up our child from school, we're letting them go. Right? When we see our husband go to work, we're letting them go. We're letting go. When we forgive ourselves for maybe, saying things we didn't mean, we're letting go. When we have a child with someone, we conceive, we're letting go. When we are deceased, our partner dies, we're letting go. Right? When we die, we're letting go. Right? So there's this non-attachment lesson we learn in all relationships, which is how to let go of the hurt, the pain, time and time again, how to let go of this expectation, this type of life we think we're living, or we think they are, and they're like this and they need to be this. We're letting go, and we're allowing our creative voice to change us, and our creative voice to give us a full moment, to help us be in the now totally, so that we're not in mistakes, we're not in regret, we're not in guilt, because we're actually following our creative voice all the way into the most heartfelt conversation we could ever have, which is, I love you, I'm sorry, I forgive you, I forgive myself, thank you. And it doesn't have to be we know how to articulate ourselves and we're like this Alan Watts public speaker and philosopher, right? It's just this simple opening you have in your presence when you become a healer of yourself, and to this relationship that everybody can be, where you're just completely in the now and receptive to your heart. And I love you, I'm sorry, I forgive you, I forgive myself, thank you. It's as simple as that, but it brings this complete moment into the beginning and the end, where you just feel, either with your child or your husband or your wife, and you just feel, okay, I did it. I created a masterpiece. I created a masterpiece.